The bag was the first thing I noticed. I was the only one on the platform at that hour, just me and the vending machine humming like it had secrets to keep. The train wasn't due for another 15 minutes, and the fog was curling along the tracks like it was trying to hide something. But the bag was sitting there, right in the middle of the bench across from me, neatly zipped, olive green, leather handle, and a faded tag looped through the zipper pull. Talia Monroe, in bold black ink. My stomach folded into itself. Talia hadn't used her maiden name in years. Not since the wedding. Not since she promised we'd always be honest with each other, even when it hurt. Not since she asked me, very gently, if I could try not to cry so loudly at night, because it was affecting her sleep. And yet, there it was. That name, on a bag that wasn't hers. I knew her luggage. This wasn't it. I stood up, slowly, as if approaching it too fast would make it vanish. The fog seemed to hush. I reached out, touched the handle. It was warm, like someone had just let go. That's when I noticed the sound, footsteps. Not behind me, not in front of me, above me. I looked up and saw her standing on the pedestrian bridge, halfway across, staring straight down at me through the dirty glass. My heart stopped moving. She wasn't supposed to be here. She told me, swore, she'd be on a retreat in Sedona until Sunday. It was Thursday, but there she was, wearing sunglasses in the fog, hair braided down one side like she always did when she wanted to feel younger. She didn't wave. She didn't move, just stared. And beside her, a man I'd never seen before. Taller than me, lean, confident. He was holding her suitcase. The real one. The one I'd bought her for our anniversary. The one with my name still stitched on the inside flap. I didn't yell, didn't cry, didn't run. I just stood there, one hand on the bag that didn't belong to her, and the other reaching for the bench to keep myself upright. She turned and walked away with him. And I sat back down, because suddenly I wasn't leaving anymore. I didn't move for 7 whole minutes. I know because the station clock ticked louder than my heartbeat. I sat there, hand still resting on the stranger's bag with her name on it, like I was holding proof that my reality had cracked and I was too stunned to do anything about it. The bench felt colder now. The fog had thickened, and I kept telling myself, maybe it wasn't her. Maybe that wasn't my wife. Maybe I was seeing what I wanted to see, or what I feared most. But then, as if the universe wanted to kick me again while I was down, the guy behind the station cafe rolled up the metal shutter to open for the day. And the first words out of his mouth, "Your wife was just up there, huh?" I looked at him like he'd slapped me. He nodded toward the bridge. "She comes here sometimes. Quiet type. Pretty eyes. Didn't know she had a twin." I couldn't speak. I just stood, legs wobbling beneath me, and mumbled something that sounded like, "Thanks," even though I didn't mean it. I wasn't thankful. I was unraveling. I dragged the bag closer. I didn't know what I was hoping for, a note, a sign, a bombshell confession. Something that would make the last 10 minutes make sense. But when I unzipped it, all I saw were neatly folded clothes. A makeup pouch. A book she used to read to me when I couldn't sleep. And then, tucked inside the inner compartment, a photograph. Not printed, just a Polaroid. And it hit me so hard I felt the blood leave my face. It was of me. Not us. Me. Alone. Sitting in our kitchen, sipping coffee, wearing that awful oversized sweater she once said made me look like a librarian having a breakdown. I didn't remember the photo being taken. My mouth was slightly open. My eyes looked tired. And on the back, in small scribbled ink, it read, "You have no idea." That was when the train pulled in. I should have gotten on. I'd paid for the ticket. I'd packed my things. I'd finally made the decision to leave behind everything that had slowly been killing me. But I didn't move. Because deep inside, something told me this wasn't the end of something. It was the beginning of something else. And I was too terrified to figure out what. I shoved the bag under the bench and walked back into the station building. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know what I was doing. But I knew one thing. She had planned this. And I was never supposed to find the bag. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I ended up checking into a low-rent motel with a flickering neon sign that said vacancy in red letters that buzzed like a dying fly. I lay on the mattress, staring at the ceiling, fully clothed, trying to figure out why she'd leave a bag with her maiden name, filled with things that felt deliberate, curated almost. The photograph haunted me. The fact that she had taken it, secretly, and written something so cryptic on the back. You have no idea. No idea about what? That she was cheating? That she never went to Sedona? That my entire marriage was some kind of performance art experiment? But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was, I wasn't even angry. I was just numb. Like someone had taken the volume knob of my life and turned everything down to a whisper. I kept hearing her voice in my head. How she used to say things like, "You always feel too much, Emery," or "You're exhausting when you spiral." Maybe I was. Maybe she had a point. But if she hated the way I was, why keep the act going? I couldn't stop thinking about the guy on the bridge either. How natural it looked, the way he carried her suitcase. How her body leaned into him like he was home. Around 3 a.m., I sat up and dumped the contents of the bag across the motel bed, one item at a time, looking for anything I might have missed. Then I saw it. A folded brochure tucked inside the book she used to read to me. The brochure was for a wellness retreat center, a place called The Pines. I'd never heard of it, but the dates printed on the back were circled in pen. And those dates didn't match when she said she was supposed to be in Sedona. There was also a small address label stuck to the bottom of the pamphlet, 3149 Kendricks Way. I grabbed my phone and searched it. It was just a few miles outside town. I stared at the screen for a full minute before getting up, splashing cold water on my face, and grabbing my keys. I had to go. I had to know. Because the version of Talia that left that bag behind, that woman wasn't the one I married. And whatever game she was playing, it wasn't accidental. She wanted me to find it. She wanted to shake something loose inside me. And God help me, it was working. I drove to the address without thinking. No music. No GPS voice. Just the sound of my tires crunching against gravel roads and my own spiraling thoughts bouncing around inside my skull. Every part of me screamed this was a terrible idea, that I should just take the train, vanish, start over somewhere far away with fewer memories and better lighting. But I kept going. Because once you realize your life might have been a performance, you can't help but chase the script to its next scene. The Pines wasn't some luxurious retreat center with yoga mats and women in linen pants drinking green juice. It looked more like an abandoned summer camp. The entrance gate was rusted. The wooden sign had moss growing on it. And the parking lot had just 3 cars, all dusty, like they hadn't moved in days. I pulled in, cut the engine, and sat there, hands gripping the wheel long after the car stopped shaking. There were lights on in one of the cabins. Dim, flickering. I took that as a sign. A bad one. I walked slowly, quietly, shoes sinking slightly into the wet earth. The cold air clawed at my neck. The closer I got, the more I felt it. That stomach-tightening sensation, like I wasn't supposed to be here. Like I was trespassing on something sacred or secret. Inside the cabin, I could hear voices. Not angry, not laughing, just calm, measured. I crept around to the side window and peeked through a tear in the curtain. My heart nearly gave out. Talia was there, sitting cross-legged on a floor cushion. No makeup, hair loose. She looked younger, lighter, and she was speaking to a small group of people. 5 of them, maybe 6, all seated in a circle, listening to her like she was some kind of guide. I pressed closer. She said something I'll never forget. The first step is removing the version of you that only existed for someone else's comfort. Someone else's comfort. Was I that someone? I backed away from the window like I'd touched a hot stove. What was this place? A cult? A wellness commune? Therapy with candles and hand-holding? I stumbled backward into the woods behind the cabin, completely unprepared for what happened next. Because that's when I saw him. The same man from the pedestrian bridge. He was walking out of another cabin. Alone. Carrying a clipboard. And taped to the top of that clipboard was a photograph. Of me. For a moment, I thought my brain had snapped. Like maybe the lack of sleep and emotional wreckage had finally taken their toll, and I was hallucinating. Because there was no sane reason that man, this tall, calm, perfect stranger, should be holding a clipboard with a photo of me taped to the top. But it was me. The same photo from the bag. Same sad sweater. Same lifeless eyes. Same timestamp scrawled in the corner in smudged ink. He stood under a crooked lantern hanging above the cabin door, scribbling notes as if none of this was bizarre. As if stalking someone's marriage was as casual as jotting down a grocery list. I ducked back behind a tree and clutched my knees like a child hiding from thunder. My breathing went shallow. I wanted to run, get in my car and drive until my lungs remembered how to breathe, but I couldn't. Because now I needed answers more than I needed safety. I watched him disappear inside, waited a full minute, then crept forward and approached the cabin. My hands shook as I pressed my ear to the wooden wall. I heard papers shuffling, and then a voice. Not his. Hers. Talia. I froze. She was inside. With him. Alone this time. She was saying something about emotional exit points and triggers, but I couldn't make out all the words. My brain was too busy short-circuiting. Then, I heard my name. Clear. Sharp. Like a pin through fabric. Emery doesn't know who he is without the pain. That's the problem. If I take that from him, he disappears. I felt like someone had poured ice water into my spine. That's when the door creaked open. I bolted back into the shadows as the man stepped out again, this time alone, the clipboard still in hand. But before he turned, he paused. Then, I swear, he looked right at the tree I was hiding behind and smiled. A slow, deliberate smile. Not friendly, not sinister, just knowing, like he could see straight through the bark and into the trembling shape I'd become. I waited until he was out of sight, then slipped around the cabin and tried the back door. Locked. But just as I turned to leave, something caught my eye. A single page caught between the slats of the deck. I slid it out carefully. It was a list. Handwritten. Titled, Separation Phase, Final Notes. My name was at the top. Below it, a checklist. Each box ticked. Loss of job. Isolation event. Passive exposure to evidence. Relocation impulse triggered. Emotional rupture confirmed. At the bottom, one final box remained. Unticked. Confrontation. And next to it, a time. Tomorrow. 8 a.m. I didn't go back to the motel. I couldn't. My mind wouldn't let me. I just sat in my car across the dirt road from the Pines, staring at that handwritten checklist like it was my own obituary. My name, my actions, my unraveling. All premeditated. All neatly ticked like items in some grotesque behavior experiment. I read it again and again, trying to convince myself that this wasn't real. That maybe it wasn't my Talia who wrote it. That maybe there was another Emery out there. Another sad-eyed husband unraveling at the seams who also wore fraying sweaters and cried when commercials used slow piano music. But the handwriting? It was hers. No doubt. The little loop in her lowercase e's. The way she made her check marks leaned slightly to the left. She had been studying me. Planning something. But for what? What the hell was confrontation supposed to mean? Was she going to break things off tomorrow morning? Was this entire retreat a front for divorcing emotionally unstable spouses with surgical precision? My stomach churned with a nausea I couldn't explain. I felt hunted, processed, like I was part of some social experiment disguised as a marriage. At some point, I must have fallen asleep in the car. When I woke, it was light out and my phone was buzzing with a voicemail. Unknown number. My throat dried when I listened to it. Talia, if you're hearing this, I guess you found the list. I wanted to tell you in person. I thought maybe I could. But you were always a little too good at disappearing when I needed you present. Please don't come tomorrow. It'll only make things worse. And Emery, I'm not sorry for all of it. Just some of it. The message ended with the sound of her breathing. Then a soft click. I sat frozen in the driver's seat, heart pounding against my ribs. I wasn't supposed to come. That meant she knew I was here. That man, the clipboard guy, had seen me. Maybe even expected me. This wasn't a chase anymore. It was an invitation. A stage. But why? Why would she want me to come just to tell me not to? Unless the confrontation wasn't between her and me. Unless someone else was meant to do the confronting. I looked at the time. 7:04 a.m. Less than an hour until the final box on the list was supposed to be ticked. I started the engine. If this was a trap, emotional, psychological, or otherwise, I wasn't walking into it quietly. But I wasn't running anymore either. I parked farther away this time. Not at the lot. Not near the trees. Too obvious. I pulled into a shallow ditch on the side of the old service road behind the Pines, engine idling until it coughed, then finally died. I sat in the silence, staring at my hands on the wheel, fingers trembling like I was about to testify in court. I kept thinking about the voicemail. The way she said, "Don't come." The careful control in her voice. Like she was rehearsing grief before it ever arrived. Like she already knew what would happen, or maybe what had already happened. I made it to the edge of the woods just as the bell rang. Not a church bell, not even a chime. A metal clang, short and sharp, like someone hitting a pipe against a rail. 1, 2, 3 times. Doors opened. People emerged. Men, women, all quiet. All walking toward the central cabin I hadn't seen before, tucked deeper into the property. obscured by the overgrowth. They moved in rhythm, like they'd done this before. I hid behind a tree and watched. And then I saw her. Talia. Not leading them. Just among them. No makeup. Gray hoodie. Expression flat. Detached. Like this wasn't the same woman who used to cry watching cartoons and sleep with her feet tucked under mine. She disappeared into the cabin with the rest. I waited 5 minutes. 10. Then I crept around the back, found a broken window just low enough to wedge myself through. It scraped my palms. I didn't care. Inside, the air was heavy, not with incense or candles, but paper. Dozens of clipboards stacked on tables. Names. Photos. Notes. And in the center of the room, a whiteboard. Words scrawled across it in red marker. Dissociation is survival. The subject must arrive before release. And then, the lights flickered. Voices behind me. I turned fast, heart hammering. 3 people stood in the doorway. One of them, the man with the clipboard. But now he wasn't holding it. His hands were empty. Open. Calm. Emery, he said. Not a question. A statement. Like he'd known me for years. I'm not part of this, I said, instantly regretting how weak my voice sounded. He smiled. That's where you're wrong. And then I heard her. Behind me. He wasn't supposed to come early, Talia said. Her voice cracked, just a little. I didn't think he'd make it this far. She stepped into the room, and for a second, I saw something familiar in her face. Something that looked like sadness. Or shame. Talia, I said, stepping toward her. What is this? What is this? But before she could answer, he stepped between us. She brought you here because she couldn't finish it alone, he said. Because you still mattered. Then he raised one hand and pointed toward the whiteboard. My name was written on it, underlined twice. And below it, one word. Reintegration. I didn't understand. I shook my head. What are you talking about? He looked at Talia. Tell him. She blinked. And for the first time in what felt like years, she looked afraid. Talia, I said again, quieter now. Please, just tell me the truth. I'm not going to break. Not this time. She looked at the others in the room, and for the first time, I realized they weren't guards. They weren't captors. They were watching her. Not me. Talia, I said again. She took a slow breath, eyes locked on mine. I didn't come here to leave you, Emery. I came here because I was scared I already had. I didn't understand. My chest tightened. My mind raced for answers, but nothing made sense. You were fading, she continued. Not from me. From yourself. You stopped laughing. You stopped fighting. You just shrank. Her voice cracked, and she looked away, but not before I saw tears welling in her eyes. I thought if I staged it, if I built a break dramatic enough, you'd feel something. Anything. I needed to wake you up. The man beside her nodded, stepping back. We observe people who are emotionally disassociating from their lives. We don't destroy marriages. We test their gravity. I blinked. You test love. Talia nodded. They call it the Pines because most people who come here don't know who they are anymore. They're ghosts. Dull versions of who they used to be. And sometimes, so are their partners. I felt like I was breathing underwater. So all of this, the bag, the photo, the fake seminar. All real, she said. But designed. To see if you'd run. Or stay. And the guy with the clipboard? I asked. Talia smiled weakly. He's a counselor. Not a lover. I almost laughed. A sharp, awkward sound that startled even me. I pressed my palms to my face, took 2 long breaths, then looked up again. I thought I lost you, I said. Every part of me believed you didn't want to fix us. I didn't want to fix the version of us we were pretending to be, she said. I wanted to find the real one again. The one that made you cry during movie trailers. The one that memorized my coffee order. The one who danced in the living room in socks and pulled me into it even when I said I was tired. I looked around the room. The whiteboard. The silence. The clipboard on the floor with my face on it. Was this ethical? I asked. Probably not, she said. We both laughed, for real this time. I felt it in my ribs. And then she reached into her jacket pocket and held out a train ticket. Renfield. The same town I'd planned to escape to. I bought it the night you quit your job, she said. In case you still wanted to go, but not alone. I stared at her hand for a long time. Then, without fully realizing it, I took the ticket. Later that day, as the train pulled away from the station, we sat beside each other in a quiet car, knees brushing. Nothing dramatic. No grand speeches. Just her head resting gently on my shoulder. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like running anymore.